I earn a living. This shark, swallow you whole. I value my neck a lot more than $3,000, Chief. Find him for 3, but I'll catch him and kill him for 10. $10,000 for me by myself. For that you get the head, the tail, the whole damn thing.
You yell shark, we've got a panic on our hands on the 4th of July.
Mr. Vaughn, I pulled a tooth the size of a shot glass out of the wrecked hull of the boat out there, and it was the tooth of a great white.
A what?
You're gonna need a bigger boat.
Love to prove that, wouldn't you? Get your name into the National Geographic.
Now, I'm not saying that this is not the shark. It probably is, Martin. It probably is. It's a man-eater. It's extremely rare for these waters. But the fact is that the bite radius on this animal is different than the wounds on the victim.
Get out of that boat!
Well, this is not a boat accident. There wasn't any propeller. There wasn't any coral reef. And it wasn't Jack the Ripper. It was a shark.
I'll never put on that nice jacket again.
Back for another round in the Jaws Obsession, episode 32, where you have Amity Island geography for episode 32. Welcome back to the Jaws Obsession, where we are here to share with you, prove to you, convince you, or remind you that Jaws is the greatest movie of all time. And that's right, we're going to have a little bit of a geography lesson today for this episode 32. What does Amity Island look like? What does it look like from the air? And did you know that Amity is a third island? We have proof from Jaws coming up on this episode to show you that Amity is an actual third island in the Atlantic Ocean. Thank you, everybody, for taking the time out of your day or evening, whichever the case may be, to dive into the Jaws universe and see what else we can find to stoke our Jaws obsession here. As you've noticed that in the last many episodes, we're building our case for the Book of Quint, which is an expanded Jaws universe. The book will actually show you the history of Amity Island, but more importantly, it's going to connect and going to bring a clearer picture about Jaws and Jaws 2. And to do that, this episode is going to be divided into 2 parts. To do that, what we have to do is we have to prove that Amity is its own island. Also, we're going to have to determine what does Amity Island look like, and we're going to have to get to the topic of a map of Amity Island. Let's jump right into part 1. Okay, so just to give you a little bit of a backstory here, as I was writing the Book of Quint and doing the research, it's just natural that Amity is its own island. It is not Martha's Vineyard. It is not Nantucket. That there has been a misconception. I've noticed there has been a misconception. Now, when Peter Benchley wrote Jaws, the novel, Amity was a town on Long Island, which is, it was completely nuked once that went into the screenplay format. So for the Book of Quint, we're using just Jaws, 1975, the movie Jaws, as canon. So we're ignoring the screenplays, we're ignoring the novel. It's just the movie Jaws, and that's what we're doing. So whatever is in the movie Jaws is canon. That's the truth, and that is what we have to build the story out. So we're going in reverse with a prequel to Jaws, the movie, and then, of course, Jaws 2 was the sequel to Jaws. So we are building an expanded Jaws universe using what's in Jaws. So what we had to do is we had to go through the movie Jaws. The lead that we're going to go into here, the proof that we're going to go into here, I was put onto the trail by Mike Currid of the Edgartown Tour Company, and he runs the Jaws tour in Edgartown over on Martha's Vineyard. And if you haven't booked a tour with him yet, I definitely recommend that you do, because you will never learn more about Jaws other than listening to the Jaws Obsession. Going over there and retracing the steps where the movie was filmed, the scenes, with Mike Currid, who is the hands down the best Jaws tour operator in the world. So you can find out the information to the Edgartown Tour Company right in the description of this broadcast, or you can follow the link for the show notes in the description below. I was talking to Mike way back for episode 17 when we did the Ultimate Jaws tour, and we had Mike on the show. Off the show, we were talking about the Book of Quint, and he said, "Oh yeah, that's definitely." I told him my 3-island theory, that it's not Martha's Vineyard, is not just Amity Island in the movie. It's actual third island, and that's how the story works. Is that it's an outlier island. And he says, "Oh yeah, that's definitely in the movie." And I said, "Well, what part?" And he said, "Yeah, the radio that Chief Brody's listening to, they actually announce." They actually list off the islands on that. The radio announcer does that. At that point, I said, "Wow, I've never even really thought to listen to that." So Jon Tedder and I jumped into the sound files, and we were able to extract the sound. The scene that he's talking about, the scene that he was talking about, is 14 minutes and 48 seconds into the movie, right before the Alex Kittner attack. So it's the Brody family at the beach. And Chief Brody is in his blue and white beach chair, and there's a radio playing next to him. And it's just after the Pippet, the dog, is running through the beach, through the water, that the radio, you can hear you can hear a couple things going on. You can hear a couple different radios. There's some music playing. There's a lot of noise, beach noise, but there's an announcer talking. So what we're going to do is we're going to isolate that sound. Let's just play the sound as it exists in the movie first, okay? Let's get to that. Okay, so this is the sound of all the beach commotion, but if you listen closely, you can hear the announcer in the background.
Nantucket ferry schedule from Woods Hole to Amity, Martha's Vineyard, and Nantucket Islands, Monday through Thursday, 8:40, 1:15, 5:45, and 6 p.m. Starting July 1, 8:30 p.m. and midnight departures from Woods Hole.
There's a lot of commotion there. It's hard to make out. What the magic of technology now is that you can isolate and drop sounds down. You can drop background sounds down. You can slow files down. So I did a couple of modifications, and now we're going to go into exactly what he's saying. So let's see if we can isolate that a bit more.
Nantucket ferry schedule from Woods Hole to Amity, Martha's Vineyard, and Nantucket Islands, Monday through Thursday, 8:40, 1:15, 5:45, and 6 p.m. Starting July 1, 8:30 p.m. and midnight departures from Woods Hole.
So if we amplify that even more and we slow him down, we slow that announcer down, maybe we can make out what he's saying. Everybody listen.
Nantucket ferry schedule from Woods Hole to Amity, Martha's Vineyard, and Nantucket Islands, Monday through Thursday, 8:40, 1:15, 5:45, and 6 p.m. Starting July 1, 8:30 p.m. and midnight departures from Woods Hole.
So yeah, what he's saying is the transcription of what he's saying is, quote, "The Nantucket ferry schedule for Woods Hole, Amity, Martha's Vineyard, Nantucket Islands is Monday through Thursday, 8:40 a.m., 1:15, 5:45, and 6 p.m. Starting July 1st, 8:30 p.m., and midnight crossings from Woods Hole are available." That's the actual announcement that he's saying. So let's listen to that one more time, but focus on the Nantucket ferry schedule for Woods Hole, Amity, Martha's Vineyard, and Nantucket Islands.
Nantucket ferry schedule from Woods Hole to Amity, Martha's Vineyard, and Nantucket Islands, Monday through Thursday. Nantucket ferry schedule from Woods Hole to Amity, Martha's Vineyard, and Nantucket Islands.
And there you have it, is that that's actual verification. The announcer in the radio, on Chief Brody's radio at the beach at 14 minutes and 48 seconds of the movie, announces right there that there are 3 islands on the ferry schedule from Woods Hole: Amity, Martha's Vineyard, and Nantucket Islands. Okay? Amity, Martha's Vineyard, and Nantucket Islands. So that theory is no longer a theory, that's a truth, is that you have Martha's Vineyard and you have Nantucket, which is closer to the mainland of Massachusetts off Cape Cod. But further out, you're going to have Amity Island. That was very important. That's very important because that fact right there is what is ingrained into the Book of Quint. And when you watch Jaws, you have to start taking your mind's eye and you have to start taking it out of Martha's Vineyard, and Amity is its own island. The example I like to use is that the filmmakers, Steven Spielberg and Universal Studios, so Martha's Vineyard was the actor, and then they used locations there to make the character Amity Island. So Amity Island is the fictional island, but they use Martha's Vineyard to portray that. And going forward, that's very important when we get into the topic of the map of Amity Island and the geography of Amity Island. We have to realize that it is its own island, that they use locations on Martha's Vineyard to depict. That's the magic of the Jaws universe. The hyperactive reality is that there is a fictional island, but it is right on the outskirts of the two real islands that are off of Massachusetts. So knowing that, now we can actually form what Amity Island looks like, and we actually can zero in and lock down on a map and a geographical location of Amity Island. Okay, so for the next part, we're now going to talk about the map of Amity Island. That's one of the features in the Book of Quint. To tie in the Jaws universe, we need a map, and that's where we're going to bring on our ORCA specialist, Jon Tedder of ORCARebuild.com and at YouTube at ORCA Rebuild. Jon, thanks for joining the show again. This is a special occasion because we're bringing you on to talk about the map of Amity Island. How are you doing today?
I'm doing good, buddy.
Okay, what I want to do is, this is the first time we've already talked about how Amity is a third island. There's Martha's Vineyard, there's Nantucket, and now there's Amity Island. We've established that is canon from the movie Jaws earlier in the episode. So now what we have is we're bringing you on because you are heading up that side of the project for the Book of Quint. As the technical advisor for the book, you're also working on the map of Amity Island, the official map. Can you give us a brief description of Amity Island as it exists in the Jaws universe? How long, how wide, north and south, those kind of parameters, very briefly. What does Amity Island look like?
So what it looks like, and this is going off of everything in the movie that you see, the distance that it takes the chief to go from his house to past the billboard, and using little stuff like that. The shape of it, the Amity is a capital L, but it's backwards. And the total length of the island is just right at 20 miles. And at its widest point, it is roughly 5 miles. But the middle of Amity is very, very thin. And that is all based off of, like I said, key points in the movie. And trying not to give anything really too much away about the map itself. So having to talk around a lot of stuff. But at its widest, where the L, capital part of the L that comes out, since it's backwards, that would be the widest part, and it's 5 miles. So we came to the realization of just how small Amity is because of how long it takes to get from point A to point B.
Yes, what we were doing is we were incorporating, and I was telling the audience earlier, is that Jaws and Jaws 2 provide a lot of clues when linked together: drive times, travel times, kids sailing their boats to one lighthouse, leaving Amity, so you know that they left Amity Harbor and now they're at this lighthouse. Just different little aspects where you have all these, you have landmarks that you can actually map out. And when you zoom out on the map, where exactly would Amity be located? Remember, this is all going on that Jon and I discussed all these details from the Book of Quint, because the Book of Quint utilizes this map, and you have to know where these locations are in order to follow along with the Book of Quint, and then that carries you into Jaws and Jaws 2. So how is it located compared to Nantucket and Martha's Vineyard?
Amity is further out.
Out to sea.
It's further out. Yes, out to sea. And it is more towards the west, out from Martha's Vineyard and Nantucket. So it's further out and it's further west. It's not this really big island. It's not close like Martha's Vineyard is close to right there at the Cape Cod. It's not that close. It takes longer to get out to Amity than it does Nantucket or Martha's Vineyard.
That's one of the elements in the Book of Quint, is that it's almost a frontier island. It's on the outskirts. It's almost like a barrier island where it's the last stop before the open ocean.
Right.
And that's where the isolation comes into play, is that Martha's Vineyard and Nantucket are actually less isolated because they're closer to the mainland than you have Amity Island, which is further out to sea than those two islands. So of the three islands, Amity was the last to get its electricity, it's the hardest to get to. So that was the last to get a ferry line. That's why it was the last to get tourists. So that's all discussed in the Book of Quint. And that's what's great, is you're going to get that characterization of Amity just by looking at this map of Amity Island. That's what's so special about this. So, and we know that maps change over time with the addition of roads and utilities and population increases. So the Book of Quint will have two versions of the Map of Amity Island. Could you explain to the audience the differences between those two versions of the map?
Okay, so in the Book of Quint, in the time that the Book of Quint takes place, Amity is not this, as you said, this real big touristy type attraction yet. So, as you said, it's an outlier island. So it does have roads, but they're more of beeline roads. And what I mean by beeline roads, it's point A to point B. It's to get there fast.
Right.
And because you don't need roads for something that's not there yet. So, there would be roads up island, there would be some down island, but there's not that many. You really only have 4, 5 if you count the one that intersects. 4 main roads, really. Now, by the time Jaws takes place, Amity's really populated with tourists. You have people that's moved there from the mainland.
Right, in 74.
All over. Exactly. They have summer homes there, and there's homes littered all throughout the island, which is very apparent, and you see that. So by then, you have many more roads that intersect with each other, like downtown in Amity. You have all the harbors. You have where the ferries come in, whereas you didn't have that before. And then there's the middle of Amity where there's houses out through there, but there's not a whole lot because everything is really more situated at the real big parts of the island where tourists will be at instead of in the middle of the island in the heartland of it.
So we have a 1951 map because Quint arrives in 1951. What I like to think about is, and this is discussed in the Book of Quint, is that there's a pre-electricity Amity, then there's a post-electricity Amity. Pre-electricity Amity is 1951. Electricity does not get to the island until 1951, and the island doesn't get wired up until the mid-50s. So what happens is that there's a different map because there's really, it's an isolated place where there's no electricity by 1951. And then by 1974, which is the second version of the map that you're working on, in the Book of Quint, you're going to have a 1974 version, which is going to, that part of the map is going to show all the roads that are in Jaws, all the different, how it changed, how the roads expanded, and you have more cottages and stuff, but you could see the population increase changes as the island. And then also you have the different landmarks from the movie Jaws that are going to be the 1974 version of the map. So what I think is interesting is the electricity. When electricity gets to the island, the island changes, and we're going to see the changes throughout the Book of Quint, and it's going to be changed. You're going to see the different changes between the two maps. What is Cable Junction? And is it shown on the map? Could we go into like how important Cable Junction is to the creation of Amity?
Yeah, so Cable Junction is exactly what it sounds like. There is an underwater cable that brings electricity to the island. So because of that, Cable Junction is on the east side of the island. It is 4 miles, maybe 4 miles and a half from the beach that is straight across from it. Now, the total mileage is 4.
And remember, we're getting, and just want to refresh the audience really quick, we're getting these distances. So we're getting these from both Jaws, but Jaws 2 is where they actually feature Cable Junction. And that's where we are getting our distances from. Because remember, Cable Junction comes into play with the Book of Quint, because that's where electricity first comes to the Amity Island. So we have to show where Cable Junction is in relation to Nantucket, which is the closer island to Amity. That's where the undersea cable is going to bring the transmission electricity is going to come to Cable Junction from Nantucket.
On the map. So there's squares, there's black lines, which makes up squares on the map, like longitude and latitude. That's what I'm looking at. So when I say it's 1 over and then you have to go down, that's how you would chart, like on it looks like a chart is really what it looks like.
On a nautical chart.
And, exactly. And that's why I did that. I did it on purpose.
That's how technical we're getting here is you're going to be able to see to scale. You're going to be able to see how many miles away, how the length of miles it takes. Maybe if you wanted to drive to one end of the island to the other, you're going to be able to count the squares like as you would on a chart. You're going to be able to actually see the actual length in miles, as well as if you're out to sea, because we are going to have landmarks that are out to sea. So Cable Junction is going to be on the map. This is important, is that you're going to bring all 3 stories together. You're going to Book of Quint, Jaws, and Jaws 2 are all going to be brought together by this map. And that the map is something that's going to be able to be referenced as viewers, as the readers of the Book of Quint go forward. You're going to be able to take this Book of Quint and you're going to be able to watch Jaws and Jaws 2 with it. And now you're going to be able to actually go, oh yeah, okay, there's that lighthouse. with the dead killer whale in Jaws 2. Oh, okay. There's the lighthouse where Brody and Hooper come ashore. That's why this map is so important. I'm going right to the top. It's just like the map of Middle Earth. How important is that to The Hobbit? That's how important this is to the Jaws universe.
Right. And for the listeners, when we're referencing these squares, 1 square equals 1 mile. And it's not just a map of the island itself. You also have the water, too. So it's also topography.
Actually, let's go into that right now. Can you detail the water depths and the topography of the seafloor around the island, and how does that play into the movie Jaws? For here on the Jaws Obsession, how does the undersea floor around Amity play into the movie Jaws?
Okay, so the seafloor itself is like any other seafloor. It has drop off and it raises, right? So where Amity is located, and I base this off of in real life, looking at actual charts on how it would look. So Amity sits, and you go roughly at the far west side. It's almost a line that stays straight. So you have a constant depth of roughly 60 to 80 feet. And I'll get into how we get them numbers in just a second. But when you go down to the backwards L on the opposite side, it extends further. The 60 to 80 feet of water depth goes along with that. But after that, it starts to drop off. Now, it goes from 10 fathoms, 20 fathoms. Now, I'll mention, too, that they just heard me say fathoms. A fathom is a nautical measurement of 6 feet.
Right.
So it goes 10 fathoms, 20 fathoms, 30 fathoms, and 40 fathoms. So that equals to 60 feet, 120 feet, 180 feet, and 240 feet.
So along the southern shore, right, along South Beach, off of just off to the south shore of Amity, you have what would be termed as the shallows. When Quint says, I'm gonna draw him into the shallows and drown him, that would be, yes, we're talking 10 fathoms or less.
Yes.
60 feet or less. As you go further out to sea, south and east, now you start dropping off. Now there's a big drop off there into deep water. And that's going to be shown on this map of Amity Island. That's very important because what we're also dealing with is the topography and the depth of the water. Using that, we actually are able to pinpoint certain things like the wreck of the ORCA. We're going to be able to pinpoint where exactly is the wreck of the ORCA, how deep in water is it, and we're not going to give that away right now because that's when you look at the map, you're going to be able to see it. You're going to be able to see the 1974 version, obviously, of the map of Amity Island. You're going to be able to see where the ORCA wreck is. And how did we get that? That's by using the lighthouses of Jaws. So my next question is, how many lighthouses does Amity have in the movie Jaws and Jaws 2? And how will they be referenced on the map of Amity Island?
There's a total of 6 lighthouses because there's the lighthouse at Amity Point. Mm-hmm. There's the lighthouse to the east. There's the lighthouse that's in the final scene. And you actually see both the final scene lighthouse and you see the Amity Point lighthouse as well, because Amity Point is right there, 5 miles from where Hooper and Brody washed up on shore. And then you have the Amity Harbor Lighthouse. Of course, you have the lighthouse there at the billboard. And then you see the lighthouse when the ferries come. So there's a total of 6. But there's also it's not a lighthouse, but there is a light at Cable Junction.
At Cable Junction, right. There is a light on top of that. So using all these visual references in the movie, you can see the 2 lighthouses in the final scene in the credit sequence of Jaws. So we know that Amity Point is way off to the distance. And when we're saying Amity Point, that's going to be a whole nother episode. Trust me, there is an Amity Point, and we're going to get to that later on. But we don't want to go off topic here. But the 2 lighthouses in that sequence, you actually can triangulate and pinpoint exactly where the ORCA wrecked in relation to the map of Amity Island. I think that's fascinating. 6 lighthouses, they're all logged. That's what we're doing here, is we're bringing everything together. It's not Martha's Vineyard, it's Amity Island. Martha's Vineyard is just the actor that they used to make Amity Island. And that's what we're showing here. We're actually finally going to have, in the Jaws universe, we're going to have a map of Amity Island, and the Book of Quint is going to deliver that to you. What has been some of the greatest challenges you've had in making the map of Amity Island?
As you know firsthand, we spent months
yes,
just trying to figure out just the locations of all these different places. it was kind of strange too how they all just, I don't want to just say fell into place, but they match what you would see looking at the island.
Yes. The
From a
island has a
distance.
very unique shape. Everyone, when you see that, it's not something that's not just like it's just a round piece of land in the middle of the water. There's a very unique shape to it, and it all makes sense once you see it.
Really the biggest challenge was really the distances, having to judge that, because you're having to go off of the time in the movie, but you're also having to look at where they're at, how they get there, and where they're going. So by going off of that, one of the earliest things you and I talked about was how long it took Chief Brody to go from his house and past the billboard.
Right.
Now, and of course you've already said this, Amity is not Martha's Vineyard. It's not. So with Brody passing the billboard, in reality, that's a loop.
Right.
It's not a road that continues on. It's a loop. So in the Jaws universe, in Jaws canon, Martha's Vineyard is a completely separate island from Amity.
Yep.
Amity is a character. Martha's Vineyard is the location.
Mm-hmm.
So when the chief passes the billboard, he keeps going. He doesn't loop around. You don't see him loop around. He keeps going. So that is a road that leads somewhere. And that road would have led him to South Beach.
Right.
It would have been one of the roads to lead him to there. And he took another road to get there, but that's for later on when people actually get to see the map. But that's
fascinating. See, that's what's fascinating about it, is that you have the billboard. You're going to show what. Just think about it. The billboard is "Welcome to Amity," so that's got to be somewhere near where the ferries are coming in, right?
Exactly.
And that's the whole thing, is that when people look at this map, they're going to go, "Oh, all right, that makes sense. That's where Chief Brody lives. There's the billboard. That's where he was going." You can actually follow all that around, instead of I think what we have Jaws fans have lacked over this time is, that the billboard is way on the other side of Martha's Vineyard compared to where Chief Brody's house was. So we're not dealing with the lore of the making of Jaws. We are now inside the world of Jaws, and this map is going to deliver that to us. And that's what you're saying, is that the most difficult parts were judging the distances, because we have to get those right in order to maintain continuity with the movie Jaws and Jaws 2. Yes,
you explained it a whole lot simpler than what I did, but yes.
That's perfect. See, the thing is John, there's a reason why you're the best technical advisor, the man for this job, because what we're dealing with here is we're dealing with a story that is based in reality, but it's a hyperactive reality. And in your videos over at ORCARebuild.com or on your YouTube channel at ORCA Rebuild, I noticed you spent a lot of production time in some of your videos on Martha's Vineyard, and you utilized drone footage of the waters and harbors, and some stunning footage showed the details into how Amity Island will look from like a bird's eye view. Did any of that footage, being able to actually go to Martha's Vineyard and actually see the way the island looks, is that helping your creation of this map of Amity Island?
Yes, absolutely, 100%. Because when we only see Amity from the ground level and partially out to sea, and then when the chief is driving around town, that's the only time you see Amity. So you don't get a real idea of its shape. You get clues, and then in Jaws 2, you get further clues.
Mm-hmm.
And so to get a bird's eye view, when you utilize drone footage, and of course you're using drone footage of Martha's Vineyard, but when you start to connect everything from Jaws and Jaws 2, and the shape of the island starts to take place, you get a very vague outline of what it would look. And then you have to start thinking, okay, well, if this is here, then this has to be here,
mm-hmm.
because of the timing. And plus you can see it, and it's not that far away.
Mm-hmm.
So that means this looked like this. This is this shape, because you can see, like, for example, when Bird and Hooper wash up on the beach, you can see the lighthouse there, and you can see a lighthouse further in the distance. It looks like a chimney, but it's not.
Right.
It's a lighthouse, which is at Amity Point, which will be a completely different episode.
Yes, even Amity Harbor, We have the Amity Harbor
Yes.
Lighthouse, right? We see that when when they have the tiger shark strung up and Hooper's measuring the bite radius and Quint's sailing in, you actually see a great shot of Amity Harbor Lighthouse. So that all that will make sense. One of the best aspects of this is that we work this out is what is the function of the ferry? Okay, that ferry, the Amity Harbor ferry, that the infamous scene is when the mayor confronts the chief on that ferry. And then it's shown again in Jaws 2 when Chief Brody gets on the ferry to take a shortcut to the function, the special function that's going on.
The opening of the hotel.
Yeah, the opening of the hotel. That there's a function to that ferry. It's an actual shortcut. There's a long way around that you could get to that hotel. But the ferry is way of like shortcutting. And that's what's really cool is that's all explained in this map. I think that's a fantastic aspect of what we're doing here is we're creating a world that's rooted in reality, but it's not Martha's Vineyard. It's Amity. And so there's a purpose to everything. There's a purpose to the ferry. There's a purpose to all the lighthouses. And that's what's really special here. Remember, you've seen that island. You've looked at it from the air. You've been on the ground. You've been all over the island. So you're actually using the topography of the island to actually flesh out and make this map. These two maps, I should say, 1951 and 1974, Amity Island. It's very important. When you read the Book of Quint, you're going to realize why you kind of need both maps. This is great. So this is getting everybody charged up. Now everybody's going, we want to see the map. Where's the map? Right? They're going to want to see this. Well, that's why we're going to keep the anticipation up because the map is going to be available in the Book of Quint, which is going to be released in October of this year. But we have a special announcement, don't we, John?
Oh, yeah, we do.
Okay. So, John, I'll let you go ahead, make that. Remember, this is Jon Tedder from Quint's Sharkin Shack over at Etsy.com. He also has ORCA Rebuild at YouTube. Go to search ORCA Rebuild, and you're going to see him. He's rebuilding the ORCA full scale, but he also has this wonderful Jaws merchandise shop over at Etsy.com called Quint's Sharkin Shack. You can follow the links to John's pages and Quint's Sharkin Shack in the description of this broadcast. However, John is going to be making a special announcement. So go ahead, John.
This is something that we came up with, and I personally think it's a great idea. And Ryan does too, because obviously he agreed to it.
Absolutely.
So for everyone that has got in line for a book, you are going to receive in the mail, it'll be mailed to you, a postcard of Amity Island, and it will say, "Greetings from Amity Island." And it will be a teaser into the map itself, but you get to see what Amity looks like.
Yes. You're going to get, it's an antique postcard just like you would have had at the old tourist traps when you visited. I grew up, I spent our summer vacations throughout my childhood was on Cape Cod. You would see these, at the tourist traps, you would see these antique postcards, and it's kind of a touristy Amity Island postcard from 1968. Everyone that is in line for the Book of Quint, if you've already jumped on as a backer at Indiegogo.com, you are already in there. You're going to get this postcard. By the last week of August, so August 27th is going to be the cutoff date. Anyone that's in line for the Book of Quint will be getting a postcard, and it's a teaser. You're going to actually see the actual shape of Amity Island. It's very limited edition. We're not doing many of these. It's just for the folks to say a big thank you that they're going to be getting the book. The book's going to have the full map, but right now you're going to be getting a postcard, an antique postcard of the actual Amity Island in the mail, mailed to you, no charge at all, just to say thank you from the Jaws Obsession and Quint's Sharkin Shack. For everyone that's in line by August 27th, those postcards are going to go out, and I'm telling you, you're going to love it. So you're actually going to be able to take this postcard and see what we're talking about here. That's great, John. What do you think?
I really love it. And what I'll really be really glad about is once the book is actually out and we don't have to be somewhat vague about the map anymore or anything else going on in the book. We can actually openly talk about it because I'm stumbling over my words trying to say things about certain things without giving too much away.
Yes, exactly. And that's part of this process. It's all about, there's an anticipation for it, and we're not going to, it's the presentation is fun. That's what it's like. This is all fun. This is really fun for us, and it's fun to bring Jaws fans closer together. So wherever you are around the world, get in line. Indiegogo.com. You can go to bookofquint.com, jawsob.com. Follow those links. If you're a sponsor, if you're a backer to the Book of Quint, by August 27th, you're going to be getting a postcard. So you don't have to wait till October. You're going to know exactly what the shape and the general idea of what Amity Island is going to look like. I think you'll enjoy this. Jon, thank you so much for coming on board and for letting us know, because this is months and months of work that we've put in, but you're putting in the lion's share there. Jon is relieving the pressure. He's like the pressure relief valve of this whole situation, where I'm handling the writing of the Book of Quint, and I did not have time to go over the finer points of this map. Jon is doing that, and that's what's going to be making this project a whole lot better. Jon, thank you so much for coming on. Always love having you.
Always love being on.
Awesome. We'll talk to you later.
All righty.
Show me the way to go home. I'm tired, I want to go to bed. I had a little think about an hour ago, and it's gotten right to my head. Wherever I may roam, by land or sea or home.
And episode by episode, we are actually building and expanding on the Jaws universe. And this was a very important episode. Very excited to announce the Map of Amity Island is created. It's going to be included with the Book of Quint. And now you can actually receive a postcard from Amity Island, courtesy of the Jaws Obsession and Quint's Sharkin Shack over at Etsy.com. All you have to do is find that link and get in line for the Book of Quint. The movie Jaws is copyrighted property of Universal Studios. Any references and sampling from the movie Jaws in this episode is intended to fall within Sections 107 of the Copyright Act. The copyrighted materials are fairly used for the purposes of criticism, comment, reporting, teaching, and research. The materials used here are protected by the fair use guidelines of Section 107 of the Copyright Act, all rights reserved to the copyright owners. And the next episode, we're going to get into some more geography of Amity Island. That's going to be a good one. We're going to bring Jon Tedder back. Hope to see you all then. Thank you all for listening. JawsOB.com, bookofquint.com. Until next week, farewell and adieu, and show me the way to go home.
Show me